Late-stage capitalism stole community. Let's get it back. I bet you're tired. So many of us are. I bet a lot of folks who show up in your spiritual community also exhausted, running on empty. Now, here's the thing. There's a very good chance that that is not, as we so often assume, our own personal failure. There's a very good chance that our exhaustion is because we live in the system that we live in. I heard a Trevor Noah quote recently. As a country becomes more and more developed, the village disappears and you have to buy it back. You have to pay for a babysitter, pay for a therapist, pay for a gym, pay for a dog walker. All the things the village used to provide, we now have to purchase. And that, among other things, is exhausting. So, welcome to this new series of posts, Reimagining Spiritual Community, living, as we do, in a time of late-stage capitalism. This whole channel, this whole project is about deconstructing and then reimagining and rebuilding our spiritual communities, because you don't have to look far to see they really aren't working for us. So, in this series, how to do that. How to do that living as we do in this exhausting system. We'll explore together how living in this environment shapes us, shapes our communities, how it harms us, our communities, and what we need to do to dismantle, reimagine, and rebuild. So today, some background for understanding, so that later, informed by that broader understanding, we can think more clearly about how we can go about rebuilding. So let's first talk about what late-stage capitalism is. But to do that, let's first talk about what early and mid-stage capitalism are. Historical context, I always find that helpful. It helps clarify what's going on and the work before us. So, to call what we live in now a late version of capitalism is kind of a misnomer. The core organizing principle of what we live in now is fundamentally different from the core organizing principles of the early and mid stages. One could argue they're not even the same thing. So, capitalism emerges 500, 600 years ago, organizing our economic energies around this core principle. Find a need, meet it better. Find a need, meet it better. Solve problems, make stuff that people need, add value to people's lives, and do it as efficiently, as inexpensively as possible. And if you do that, if you are better, faster, cheaper than your competitors, for example, if you invent an assembly line so that you don't have to make each product by hand, if you do offer better quality for lower price, people will reward you and they will buy your product and you will make a small profit. And then you can take that small profit and you can invest it in new ways and better ways to make your processes even more efficient, to make your product even more better, faster, cheaper, which does two things. It solves people's problems, provides what people need, shoes and plows and tables and food and clothing, and it helps the community use their limited resources as efficiently as possible. By the price that people are willing to pay, the community decides together if, for example, a lot of timber would be more useful to them used as plows or used as tables. And they decide that by the price they're willing to pay. If people will pay more for a plow, well, let's use the timber to make plows. It's a feedback loop so that consumers inform producers how to best use the community's resources. Early stage capitalism. Find a need, meet it better, solve real problems, be efficient, innovate, and then reinvest. It was a system of incentives that helped the community meet human needs very effectively. Now, with just that brief description, you already noticed that is not how our economy is organized now. We do not live in early stage capitalism. But first, let's talk about mid-stage capitalism. This happens in the 1700s, early 1800s, the Industrial Revolution. So mass production replaces individual production. Mechanization dramatically increases output. People move to the cities so they can work together on mass production. Goods become even cheaper, even more abundant. And an inflection point happens where eventually our processes get so good at meeting needs that supply begins to outpace demand in the local markets. So in mid-stage capitalism, producers have to find non-local markets to buy up the extra stuff that their super efficient processes are able to create. Now, At the same time that's happening, transport systems like rail and steam and shipping are getting dramatically better, so these producers could sell their stuff non-locally. So the organizing principle remained the same: find a need, meet it better, solve real problems, do it efficiently, innovate, and then reinvest. But now do it for far away, non-local markets. Now, still today, we have companies that emerged during mid-stage capitalism. Dishes from England, Wedgwood; Crystal from Ireland, Waterford; watches from Switzerland, Omega. When I was a kid, there were still textiles from New England, Pepperell sheets. I grew up with those. Mid-stage capitalism kept the organizing principle: find a need and meet it better, same incentives, same systems, but eventually processes got so efficient that they even began to outpace faraway demand. And that was the turning point. That's when late-stage capitalism began. Now, late-stage capitalism is more than an economic system. It's perhaps more a cultural atmosphere or a vibe than it is even an economic system. It's a set of organizing principles, not for how we buy and sell, but for how we live, which we're going to see in these posts profoundly impacts how we think about and how we reimagine the purpose and the function of our spiritual communities. Late-stage capitalism is not a tweak to the early and mid stages. It's a brand new organizing principle, and that has reshaped everything. Once we realize that we have a seemingly limitless ability to create supply, and that demand will never be able to keep up with supply, we changed the core principle. We pivoted from find a need and meet it better to create a problem, then sell the fix. Create a problem, sell the fix. Or you could put it another way: invent an itch and then sell the scratch. Well, that's about the time that the mass advertising industry was born, a machine not designed to solve problems, but to manufacture problems. We stopped selling functions and we started selling feelings. And for the most part, bad feelings. Products became less about meeting a need and more about defining status, for example. So a $10 t-shirt with the right logo can get $100 because we're not selling cotton, we're selling prestige, or we're selling belonging. Buy this and you'll belong. Buy that, you'll let people know you're successful. Late-stage capitalism learned to manipulate the deepest human parts of us, create bad feelings, then sell to those bad feelings. Create anxiety, then sell a fix. Threaten our longing for love, then sell a fix. Damage our human identity, then sell a fix. Our deepest needs for meaning, to belong, to feel secure, to be loved, our deepest human needs, spiritual needs by the way, threaten those, then sell the fixes. Now here's the thing. It's been 4 generations of this now. So now the problem is not so much that we live in late-stage capitalism. Now the problem is late-stage capitalism lives in us. Our parents absorbed this way of being human from their parents, who got it from their parents back 4 generations. So now it's unconscious. We unconsciously build our lives on unquestioned doctrines that act as an operating system, quietly running everything. Doctrines like growth will never end, resources are limitless, competition is better than cooperation, profit is the highest good. Now, we would never say that. We'd never say profit is more important than people. But if you look at how we live, and we'll see this, it is how we live. It is what we believe. So before we start to reimagine our spiritual communities, we must first see and name what the core doctrines of late-stage capitalism are. If we don't name them because they are in us, if we don't see them because they are in us, we will just blindly accept them. Think about this. Nobody wants polluted air for our kids. Nobody wants health care denied because the credit card is maxed out. Nobody wants better schools, mostly for the rich kids. Nobody wants a worker to give 40 or 60 hours a week, but yet still not be able to make rent. But here we are. And we are here because we have blindly, unconsciously accepted the core doctrines. It's a system that has gotten inside of us. Growth and profit and production. These are not tools anymore. They have become unquestionable dogma. They are not a means to an end. They are the end. And when a doctrine does that, begins to live inside of us, it shapes our whole lives, especially our spiritual lives. It infiltrates our communities. It makes things as human as belonging a transaction. You belong if. It tells us that rest, as human a thing as there is, must be earned. It makes spiritual community a product to be consumed. That's why knowing the doctrines matters. Because the danger is, because those doctrines live inside of us, they're not just shaping our economy, they're shaping our souls and they're shaping our communities. So let's explore them together. Let's explore them so that we can resist them, so that we can build communities that make it possible to resist them, because we do that better together. Let's put human well-being back at the center of our communities, and especially back at the center of our spiritual communities. Well, that's where we're headed in this series. I hope you'll come along. If you want to get notified when a new post goes live, you know what to do. Go ahead and subscribe.